Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the next episode of Disobedient. I'm your host, Peter Arena, and I am excited to have with us today a fantastic new guest, Nancie Orticelli from the Constitutional Coalition of New York State. Nancie has been an instrumental mover and shaker in the field of personal rights in New York State since about 2013, when she got politically active in her opposition to the SAFE Act here in New York State, and was instrumental in the formation of the Constitutional Coalition of New York State in and around 2018. So this is going to be a great conversation talking about personal liberties and rights, and where things are going, and where this activism is leading. So, Nancie, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Pretty good considering we're in New York State.
Yeah. So just for our listeners, we got a little bit of background noise with Nancie, but once the guy's done mowing the lawn behind her, then that's going to go away. But I think the sound is coming through very clearly for you. So we're going to be able to hear your message loud and clear. So
it's real life over here.
Real life. We got real life going on. So I always ask my guests, first off, an open-ended question. Who is Nancie Orticelli?
So I'm just a mom and a wife, and I have lived in Western New York pretty much my entire life, and just concerned with raising my children. And until the SAFE Act passed, I'm still concerned with raising my kids, even though the SAFE Act passed, but yeah. That was my only focus up until then. And I could not believe, the absolute tyranny and illegality, unconstitutionality of the SAFE Act. It just blew me away. And so I started getting, involved politically, just working for different political candidates that I believed in, and still raising my children. I have a couple dogs. I sing on the worship team at my church, and just a normal person who decided to get involved because I truly believe that our founding fathers set things up to be we the people, not we the government. And we the people have allowed the government to become the only ruling entity in our country, and it's time that we take that back a little bit.
So the first question is, what is the SAFE Act?
So the SAFE Act is an unconstitutional law that was passed in the middle of the night by Andrew Cuomo that basically infringes on your Second Amendment right. And if anybody is familiar with the Second Amendment, it literally says shall not be infringed. And it's gun laws that have no merit and have not proven effective at all in preventing any kind of crime used with a firearm. So it's useless. It just basically causes the legal gun owners to be impotent with protecting their personal safety, and it gives all the power back to the criminals, because there's no criminal that's going to say, well, we can't do that because the SAFE law is in effect.
Right. Well, that seems to be the case with a lot of these gun laws. And, unfortunately, we're faced with some timely consideration of this topic because of recent events, both in your area where you are in Buffalo, New York, and now as of yesterday in this little town of Uvalde in Texas. So we're seeing a lot of people clamoring for gun control laws, but that it's kind of a broadcast kind of anxiety and anger on the part of people with no real clear indication as to what that term gun control means. And what do you think the implications are of what's been happening with these shootings, and likewise, what do you think the implications would be if quote unquote gun control were to take place?
So I think, if you look at our state and you look at a town like Chicago and New York City, the places that have the most extreme gun laws and the most stringent gun control laws, those are the places where crime is actually the highest. So, I mean, I don't understand why people can't see that. It's not rocket science. Literally, my 17-year-old daughter at one point was like, what's the correlation here? And it's the fact that, law-abiding citizens are being left defenseless. If you look at the salary for a school superintendent, and you see that they make hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's how much money is going towards that. And then you look at how much money is going, say, towards a school resource officer to keep our children safe, that's zero. And if we had a school resource officer at each one of these schools, you up your chances of keeping your children, the odds are in your favor of keeping your children safe. I don't know. Go ahead.
What is that resource officer's job?
So it's literally here in West Seneca, where I live, my children went to West Seneca East High School, and they always had a school resource officer. And a school resource officer is a police officer assigned to that school. And he sits at a desk right at the entrance. You have to buzz, show your ID to get in. And just him being there, in my opinion, is a deterrent to any criminal outside force that would like to come in and harm our children. And the neat thing about him is that all the kids knew him. They all knew him by name. They loved and respected him. It also creates this environment where our young people then have good relationship and a good outlook on our police officers as well. So it kind of repairs that relationship too. I don't know. We have a radio show here in Buffalo on Monday nights, 6 to 8 p.m. on WEBR 1440. It's also on Odyssey.com. Basically, any radio streaming app, you can find us. And we had a guest on this last Monday night. Her name is Angela Stanton King. She is the goddaughter of Alveda King, and Alveda King is Dr. Martin Luther King's niece. He was also pardoned by President Trump, and he touted her as a great example of somebody who has reformed their life because of what, they went through in prison. She was in prison for 2 years for, I think it was a car theft ring. And she rehabilitated, and now she's working with people coming out of prison to get them back into society. Well, she was here in Buffalo last Tuesday when Biden was here. And she led a protest against him downtown, down on the east side, Jefferson Avenue, where the shooting took place. Mainstream media did not cover it. The Daily Wire did. And she protested him because she is for an organization called Black Guns Matter. She says that, every gun law is a racist law because it renders the people in the city where these gun laws are most prevalent defenseless. And she had said that every one of those victims should have been strapped with a weapon to defend themselves. You're going to have a lot of people say, well, there was a security officer. He was armed. He did get off a shot or two, but the killer wore body armor. However, can you imagine if that person knew that every single person had the potential to be armed in that store? I really believe that it's a deterrent to the criminal element. If he knows, what was said about America, that the reason why we've never been attacked on our homeland is because there's a gun behind every blade of grass. That's one of the reasons why. It's the knowledge that things may go bad for you if you try to harm these people. And so as far as the SAFE Act is concerned, and you're talking about what happened here in Buffalo and what happened at that school, arm our citizens. Give us the ability to protect ourselves. Don't take that away from us, especially women. I know I'm rambling on, but especially women, we talk about equality. A firearm is the great equalizer between me and a man who's out there to attack me, potentially attack me. And, gun laws, any gun law is an infringement, and we're not here for it. We're here for allowing people to make the choice to protect themselves in any way that they seem best.
Well, I don't want to digress too much off of the Constitutional Coalition subject too much. However, this is a really important topic, and so I'm going to ask a few things here that may be a little difficult for you to answer, and you take it as you feel. But so there are some who are looking at the fact that these supposed shooters in these events were young men who, may have been manipulated by others, and we don't understand the implications of what may be going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. And there are now in our past a number of these other shooting events that some people seem to believe were staged events. Mm-hmm. And, again, I don't necessarily, want to put you on the spot with this, but it does seem as though there is something afoot here. There is a political motivation. It feels as though that right now, in the lead up to this next election, where the Democrats have a really, really poor standing and are looking at a potential implosion of their majority and leadership nationally, if not by each state, that they're going to be doing whatever they can to bolster their electorate, their base. And this gun control issue is one to effectively light a fire under their fannies in order to get them to come to the polling booths in their favor. So the other thing I'm going to point to is, what do you feel is the place of the family in guiding these young men and other people who are, where is the family? Where is the responsibility of the family? So I'll leave it to you to talk about those things.
Okay, so do I believe that this could have been a false flag operation? I believe anything at this point. I mean, if people think that the government isn't capable of controlling events for their own gain, then you live under a rock. You don't even need to look any further even than the Tuskegee experiments in Oklahoma, that the government is evil and corrupt. And am I saying that's what these issues are? I don't have proof of that, but nothing would surprise me. And even if they didn't orchestrate this, they're definitely capitalizing on it. And that's disgusting, because these are people who are dead. And how dare you use their deaths to further your career? They're not trying to further protection and safety for the country, which I could say, okay, yes, use this to protect us. They only do this and they only bring this up when there's a tragedy. If they really cared and they really wanted to, protect people and have gun control, it would be their talking point all the time, not just when there's lives lost. So it's disgusting and it's inhumane and inappropriate to me that they would do this. Like I said, any conspiracy theory, there's always a possibility, because there's absolute proof in the past that they've done this. Yeah. What was your second? I can't remember your second.
The second one is the place of the family, right, and quite frankly of God, and in the lives of the young, where there is no sense of community, there is no sense of right and wrong, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct. And, the family has been attacked, especially recent decades. And that it's a sinister plan. I believe in the Lord. I believe in spiritual things. And I do believe that there's a devil. And I do believe that the family unit was God's plan, and, mother, father, children. And you do see statistics where people who have that core nucleus of their family do become more, successful. They're more secure. There's not a lot of mental issues. Is there exceptions to the rule? Absolutely. Yeah. But you see, the breakdown of the family, and you realize that is, like you said, community. It's where the government is trying to become your family, and they don't have your best interest at heart. Your family does. I mean, in my home, I'm married to my husband 23 years. We have 2 children, and my kids I know that if something ever happened between my husband and I, it would be awful for them. And I'm not, we're not willing to do that to our children. And if we feel that, I don't understand why other people don't feel the same way. They don't realize that breaking up the family is something that is detrimental to people. And then you see even, as far as the disintegration of the family, where people are, moms are becoming dads and dads are becoming moms, as far as, gender reassignment and the confusion and the absolute, like, what is going on here? And you wonder why there's so many children. The two shooters in the last 2 weeks were both 18 years old. And it's, what has happened in their childhood? What are they seeing? What are they going through that got them to this point? Did they not have a mom and a dad to guide them through this? I'm not saying every mom and dad are awesome. We know that, but
they could be good parents, but these children's lives are awash in a culture where it's a non-relenting assault on the lives and the belief systems and the decision-making processes of these young people that the parents are helpless to try to prevent.
Well, it's crazy, and the attack on children is ramping up in the last few years. I mean, in New York, starting with the removal of the religious exemptions for vaccinations to attend school, and now you have children under the age of 16 being allowed to just chop off their reproductive organs and go under this reassignment surgery. I've seen the pictures of what this looks like, and I'm horrified that any parent in their right mind would say, yes, you're allowed to do that. I'm sorry, the lawnmowers.
Okay, we can hear you.
You're allowed to do that. I wouldn't even allow my child to do overnights sometimes at certain people's houses. I could not imagine allowing her to chop her breasts off because she just doesn't feel comfortable in her skin. I don't know about you, Peter, but growing up, I didn't feel comfortable in my skin a lot. It's called growing up and going
puberty. It's called puberty.
Yeah.
Well, there's just this big mammoth beast out there that I think that myself and I think many other people are having trouble grappling with, because we're being confronted by all of these things that are discombobulating. We're being thrown off our centers of this is right, this is wrong, this is left, this is right, because we don't know why. And people speculate as to why, that there's some sort of master plan as to to keep people in this state of unknowing and confusion, and so that potentially you can be re-indoctrinated with a new way of thinking, and given it's almost a torture technique, as it were. But
absolutely.
So you mentioned something about the fact that the government wants to take the place of the family, and that harkened back to me about the Constitutional Coalition of New York State and your group, and the fact that it seems to me that one of the principal things that's going on here is that we've allowed the federal government especially, but then also the state governments to take on these ever greater and greater roles of responsibility from cradle to grave over our lives. And I want to ask what you think it can be done quite tangibly by the Constitutional Coalition in order to wrest some of that control back to the states from the federal government, and from the states back to the individual communities and individuals.
So for us, it's literally informing people and being involved. There are so many laws and rules out there where citizens like you and I, just a mom from West Seneca, have absolute rights and power, I'd like to say, by, attending different meetings and being aware and objecting to certain things, and promoting other things that we don't even realize. That is our right. It's actually our duty to do those things as citizens, but we have become so relaxed in allowing people that we elect to represent us to just kind of handle it without questioning them. And so for the Constitutional Coalition, we educate people as to what their rights are, what they are allowed to do in government, what they're, petitions, different things you can do. And what we've done in the past is we've brought in a group called Foundations for Applied Conservative Leadership, who has come and done political classes just for normal citizens like you and I, and informed people of what they're allowed to do. As a result, we heard from a group the other night at our meeting in Jamestown, New York, that they took what they learned and they've started going to their meetings, their legislature meetings, their town council meetings, and they have started to demand them to represent the people and not themselves anymore. And they're making headway. So that's how it starts at a local level. I mean, you can't think to yourself, well, I'm going to go federally. I'm going to go to the federal level right now and demand they give rights back to the states. I personally can't do that, but I can make a difference here in my local town and county and start from the bottom up. And I think we saw this last year, we saw a lot of people starting to put that into action in the school board elections. It was crazy. We had so many parents start to take back the power that you saw this union spending millions of dollars to stop them. Yeah. That right there is telling in and of itself.
Yeah. We saw, I think there was something like just in Western New York State, at least 22 school board seats went over to these grassroots folks who were running on. What do you think are some of the more salient issues that these folks who were going up against incumbents were are important to them?
Well, the left and the union would like to tell you that they were running on these crazy conspiracy platforms, and it literally was just parental involvement. That's all it was. It wasn't something so far out there that it would energize a shooter to go to a city and shoot up a Tops, which is what they're saying. They're saying that the parental ideology of just wanting parental involvement in your schools is what energized this killer. And that is so outrageous to me. It's such an outrageous statement. So it basically was parental involvement in the schools. The sex education part, it's not that you don't teach biology and reproduction, but you don't need to teach sexual preference. That's not the school's job. And CRT, it's being accurate as far as our history, which I'm all for, but you don't need to start feeling shame and blame for being white. And that's what's happening. Teachers were leading kids in writing apologies for their whiteness. And how is that education? That's indoctrination. Right. Those were the three basic things: parental involvement, sex education, and CRT. It's not so far out there.
What about basically the insanity that we've endured for the past 2 years in the form of the vaccines? And is that another issue that may have been also on the?
It absolutely was. The mandates, the mask and vaccine mandates, 100%. And it's all about choice, where we all pay taxes to our school districts. We all have the right to an education from our schools, especially in New York State. In New York State's Constitution, it says that every citizen has a right to education from our public schools, which actually is why a lot of the vaccine choice parents won lawsuit based on that, because we realized before pandemic, when those children were kicked out of school for not being vaccinated in 2019, the state still had the responsibility to provide the education to the students. And we know now they can do it through remote learning. And so parents got reparations for that, for those years that they were not able to have their kids educated by the state. But I digress.
Right.
We absolutely, every kid is required, is entitled to that education in New York State. And so if you want to send your child to school, but you don't feel safe, by all means, your child can wear a mask. But you can't put that on my child if I don't think my child should wear a mask. If you don't feel safe, you can stay home. But the rest of us have the freedom to make that choice for ourselves and send our children to school. So yes, vaccine and mask mandates 100% were part of what these parents ran for on these at this grassroots level. So, and it was just like I said before, and I'm going to shout this, until it's over. Why did the union spend millions of dollars on something that people say it's not effective if you're on the school board? Baloney. It's effective. It's a start. And yes, you're correct. We had 22 wins in Western New York. Some of them were backed by the union, and that's great. We're not right away, if you're backed by the union, we're against you. If you have constitutional rights as your platform and the union backs you, that's even better. Good for the union then. So,
right.
Yeah.
I think the other seeming how I'm trying to put the proper word to it, chink in the armor is the budget and the control that the state and subsequently the federal government has over these small communities with their schools and their school boards is the budget.
Correct.
So, tell me what's going on there.
So, full disclosure, before I continue talking, our coalition, we're not a one-issue organization. We unite with people and other organizations that maybe are one issue. So they're actually the experts on this. We're not. Yeah. Western New York Students First is a great organization that we backed. And also, there's a woman by the name of Reese Perry from Franklinville. She runs Freedom Lovers of Franklinville. She's very well-versed in the school board issue and how they receive funding and what they do with the funding. But you're correct, the funding is huge, and a lot of schools are being starved, if you will, right now because so many parents are pulling their children and homeschooling. And I think that's also another reason why the union has fought so hard to keep parents off of the school board because they don't want to lose that funding. It directly affects them. They want their yes men on the board because the school board has direct access to your local legislature, and your ledge is the one that obviously votes for budgets. And so it is very, very lucrative to be on a school board as far as your district budget is concerned. And all the budgets basically passed in New York. There's usually, it's very, chances are very slim that ever will not happen, because I think the average citizen thinks, yes, of course we want to fund our schools, but they're not looking at the itemized funding and what it's all going for. And you have to realize, we even know the bus issue now. The buses all have to be electric by, 2035. That is a lot of money that's going to go into that, where I would rather see that money and have it put towards something to keep our children safe in our schools. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, and there's also the issue here of not only what is it going for, but where is it coming from and the strings that are attached to it, and the conditions that are incumbent upon these school boards that are being demanded of them. If you're going to spend the money, you got to do what we say. Right,
absolutely. And that's the onus on the whole thing, where the money's not just coming from nowhere, where people say, sure, you can have this money and do whatever you want with it. It's, you can have this money, but you're going to implement our policies. You're going to implement what we want. And it's the government. And, people say things all the time, like, we got to vote for this, or our property taxes are going to go up. If we don't pay school taxes, our property taxes are going. You don't realize that the money that the school's getting from the state is still coming from you. Even if you don't pay your school taxes in your localities and they get money from the government instead, that money is still your money. We are the ones that fund the government. Like, it doesn't matter which entity it comes from. We are the ones that are paying for it, regardless of where it's coming from. And I think people forget that. Well, we're going to not do this and we're not going to get the money here, but they'll just get the money from the states. It's still your money.
Right. It's quite insane.
It is.
So these are some of the, Grant, like you say, it's Western New York students, and Reese Perry, who I recently met when I met you, who I'd also love to get onto the show and have a conversation with. Reese is a real firebrand. She is,
and she's so smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's so smart. She knows what she's talking about. Yes, Western New York students first, and then Reese.
Western New York students first. Got it.
Yeah, she runs Freedom Lovers of Franklinville, and she's very smart and intelligent, well-spoken as far as these issues are concerned. It's her mission. The kids are.
Okay, well, we're going to try and get those links to that in the show notes as well, so that we can point people to that. Just as a reminder, folks who are jumping in at this later stage of the interview, I'm sitting down here with Nancie Orticelli from the Constitutional Coalition of New York State. We're talking about all things constitutional, and she's doing wonderful things along with all of her fellow members in that group to try to preserve people's constitutional rights and civil liberties. And my next question, I guess, Nancie, is what do you see coming on the horizon? What's heading toward us that is a fight to prepare for?
So New York State is right now in our government, we have a super majority of Democrats. We've never had a super majority of either party in New York State ever. It's more than a majority, obviously. It's a super majority. And part of that is the Democrat Socialists. That's a literal party here in New York State. And we have a lot of Democrat Socialists part of that super majority. The trend that we're seeing and that we've learned from different, political experts is that we will never be a red state ever again because of the supermajority, ever, unless some act of God. There's those of us who cannot leave New York State for certain reasons. And I know a lot of people have abandoned the state because they've seen this coming, where we're just not going to be a state that's free ever again. But those of us who are here, we do have hope and we do have faith, but we realize it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in one election cycle even, where we gain back middle ground. I don't believe in far right or far left control in the government. I believe in the middle ground so that every constituent is represented. And for us in the Constitutional Coalition of New York State, we will fight for your freedoms no matter who you are. If you are a progressive liberal, if you are gay, straight, bi, if that's your choice, even if I don't agree with your lifestyle choice, I still fight for your right to make a choice, an informed choice. And that's between you and God. But the Constitution isn't just for Christians. It was for every citizen in the United States. So we do fight for everyone's right. So we see coming on the horizon that there's a big political battle. And we also see that there are a lot of forces out there sent to separate us. And we need to gain back some ground. And our goal is to take the wins that we do get, starting with the school board, using that as a jumping off point and taking a leap and say, okay, now let's get the next one. We have Buffalo City and Lackawanna City school board elections coming up in the next few months because they weren't at the same time. Those are huge battlegrounds. Don't know if we're going to make any inroads, but we're going to try. We're going to unite with Moms for Liberty. We have them coming from Wayne County to try to start a chapter here in Erie County. They are such an effective group nationally that why would we try to reinvent the wheel? Let's join together and try to take back some of these school boards. And then we have the general election coming up in November. And in the general election, we have our governor's race. This is a source of contention for a lot of conservatives because a lot of people do not agree with Lee Zeldin, and he is the endorsed candidate. A lot of people would rather have Andrew Giuliani, who is running, son of Rudy Giuliani. And honestly, for me personally, I'm not going to say who I'm voting for because it's nobody's business. My suggestion is that people look at the statistics, look at the trends. And there's a man named Greg Soika from Lancaster who is kind of my mentor. He made the suggestion that let's just get in a red candidate and then we can go back to killing each other afterwards. But let's gain some ground let's stop losing. Losers do not legislate. That's what Stefan Mihailu always says to me. He was our Erie County comptroller.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get a win and let's move on from there and just keep making gains. And so for me, for our coalition, it is a political fight right now. And I think that the focus for us is to get good candidates elected as much as we can. Are we going to get it right every single time? Probably not. We're human beings. That's just what happens. But we're not going to beat ourselves up over it. We're going to keep going, keep educating, keep providing classes for people. And in the meantime, we're also going to make it difficult for the politicians who are in office, who are taking away our rights. We're going to make their lives a little difficult, which is what we're known for. We're known for protesting and rallying. For example, our county executive is Mark Polenkars, and we've been known to go to his fundraisers and make so much noise that his attendees cannot enjoy themselves. And hey, you made our lives hell for 2 years in lockdown. We're just repaying the favor. And you don't like it, then maybe you shouldn't have done it. And that's how you hold your politicians accountable. I mean, it's not violent. It's not, we're not. Yeah. Absolutely. We're not hurting anybody. And it drives him insane to the point that he tweets about it afterwards. So
nice.
You don't deserve to have peace.
You're on his mind. You're on his mind.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
You want to be on his mind.
Absolutely.
You want a bitter taste in his mouth. That's good.
Uh-huh.
I want to, speaking of political activism and doing things that are effective, I wanted to go back to that Foundation for Applied Political Leadership, maybe kind of flesh that out a little bit, because it sounds like something that my listeners might be able to get their teeth into and participate in and learn from.
So it's an organization called Foundations for Applied Conservative Leadership, and they are based down south. They are an organization that their goal is to help conservative citizens learn how to be effective in politics, learn how to understand how the political process really works. And they do a political leadership school. They have a bunch of instructors who are completely credible, who have run for office. Some of them are actually in office across the country themselves, and they're all conservative. And what you can do, you don't even have to be an organization. You could just be an individual. Right. You go to their website. It's Foundations for Applied Conservative Leadership. Just Google that. And you apply to host a school. It doesn't cost you a dime. They will assign an instructor to you. You'll set the date. You find a venue. They pay for the venue. They pay for all the food. What they do is you do a snack, a lunch, and another snack. You buy it, and then you get reimbursed. They pay for the whole thing. I mean, but you have to stay within budget. They fly the instructor in. They pay for the hotel for the instructor, and then it's 9 to 5. It's an all-day school. It's interesting. You don't even realize that you're there that long. It's right. Interactive. It's practical. It's something that everybody can do. I think they want to make sure you get at least 25 attendees, and then they do the school, and it is amazing. I've taken the class 4 times, and I learn something new every single time.
Wow, so it's fantastic.
Yeah. It is.
And so what are some of the things that come to mind in terms of technique and principles that you're learning during those sessions?
Well, one of the things they do is, I told you about, making noise at fundraisers. They do give you hints on how to do that. They teach you a thing called the pyramid principle and following your politicians around, demanding answers. But they also talk about roll call votes in your local government and the importance of roll call votes and why you want to get a political candidate on record for his votes and how you use that. They teach you, if you're planning some form of activism, they give you 2 different tools to use to implement to see if it's worth it or not. Do you know what I'm saying? Not everything is worth it.
Yeah.
And it's scoring.
Not a hill to die on, in other words.
Correct. And it's a scoring system. And then you say, you know what, this didn't score high on this, so we're not going to do this. You know, we're going to figure something else out. They also will teach you how to campaign if you're interested in running. And if you are interested in running and you've taken this class on how to campaign, they will help you with your campaign. They're just an amazing organization. So we've learned a lot from them.
Now, I'm sure that people who are opposed to the conservative moniker are going to say, well, that's just an indoctrination camp, that they're just basically delivering to you some sort of ideology and shoveling you, down that particular avenue. I guess the question is, how free of political ideology or drenched in it is this kind of schooling, or are they? Go ahead.
It's constitutional. It's 100% constitutional. They've helped Democrats. They've helped Republicans. They've helped libertarians. Okay. As long as you're constitutional, I mean, that's every citizen of the United States, no matter what your political party. You could be, there's a Democrat here in Erie County. His name is Mickey Kearns. He's our county clerk right now. He used to be an assemblyman. He's one of the most constitutionally minded politicians I've ever met, and he's a Democrat. And so, that's the thing with us. We're not only Republicans. In fact, I'm not even a Republican. I'm a registered conservative. So it's just, it's for everybody. So there's no indoctrination. There's no political ideologies discussed at this class. It's all constitutional. Right. And that's what we love about it.
Excellent. We're kind of closing in on 45 or so minutes. And that's usually about the time that I close up our interviews. I wanted to just ask you if there's something that's really of interest that you want to tell our listeners, and just go from there.
Yeah, this isn't easy, fighting for freedom, especially if you're not backed financially, if you're just like a mom and a wife like me. The attack that my family has faced over the last 5 years has been just relentless. In the beginning, it used to affect me greatly. And it's not for the faint of heart. If you believe in freedom and you believe in a peaceful future for your children, I encourage everybody to get involved at a grassroots level. There are grassroots organizations all around. But one of the things I want to tell people is, when you research these groups, don't believe everything you read online, because the lies and the attack are insane. I've been labeled a white supremacist, a racist, where our group is actually listed in the Southern Poverty Law Center's groups of most racist groups. And what I always say is, can you please provide me with one fact to back that up? There is literally nothing we have ever said or done to earn that distinction. So if you get involved, be prepared to be attacked, but double down. That's what we learn in this political action school. Once you start being attacked, it's because you're being effective. And don't back off, but double down and stand in your truth and know what is true, and what they're saying about you is completely false. And know that if God is for you, who or what can be against you? And, it does get done. Kelly Hunter. She ran for school board, and she and I have spoken a lot because she was viciously attacked for running for school board. And I was like, Kelly, it's because you're effective and you're standing in truth. You are a good person. So surround yourself with people who can encourage you, who lift you up, and don't lose heart. Research the Revolutionary War and read what those men and women went through. It's nothing. What we're going through is nothing compared to what they went through, and they fought and died for our freedom. The least I can do is run a monthly meeting and try to get good people elected. And if I get attacked, water off a duck's back.
Right on. Well, that's a great that's a great way to close. This has been an amazing interview, and I'm so very grateful for you to take the time and sit down with me today and share your thoughts with myself and our listeners. We really need more people like yourself leading this charge for personal freedom, because it's being stripped away from us radically. And so you fall squarely under the heading of disobedient, Nancie, and we appreciate you, and I hope we can catch up with you again sometime in the very near future. One last parting shot.
Yeah, I do. I want to tell you, because you're talking about disobedient, it reminded me of 2020 when we're in the middle of lockdown. Our group didn't do much because there were a bunch of other groups popping up and we wanted to support them as far as, rallies and protests. But in October of 2020, our county executive said that we can't have Thanksgiving. So I said, hold my beer, even though I don't drink beer. So we did a bunch of news interviews with the Buffalo News, and I said, we're having a big Friendsgiving. We got a pastor in the city to donate his property. We said, we're having Friendsgiving. We made flyers and we divided it up by people's last names. Like, you bring the main dish, you bring this dish, you bring this dish. We had a local businessman, Carl Palladino, donate money for porta potties and tents. And we set up right in the middle of the city. We had marching patriots march in a huge parade, making all kinds of noise, come to this event. We had over 500 people at this event. Wow. We hired a live band. No Department of Health, no police bothered with us at all. It was the most amazing disobedient thing we ever did.
Love it.
It was awesome. It was called Friendsgiving. And then once again, New Year's Eve, he said the same thing. We went right downtown Buffalo. We had a big New Year's Eve party with a DJ, a ball drop. We had over 300 people. And it's like, you're not telling us what to do.
Boom.
We're doing this. And they left us alone. So, yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you again. And we'll catch up again soon. And
sounds good.
I want to check back in and check on your progress.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Okay. Thank you.